Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. Later today, David Grusch will be here as we dive into the topic of UFOs, or UAPs as they're now called, and a bombshell new movie on disclosure. Is the big disclosure coming soon? Is all of this just a prelude to a big admission directly from those in charge? But we begin today with the political landscape as Secretary of State Marco Rubio's stock appears to be on the rise. We are seeing meltdowns from Governor Walz in Minnesota and from the new head of the, quote, Office to Protect Tenants in Mayor Zohran Mamdani's administration in New York. This woman who we told you about yesterday, who hates white people who own property, you'll be shocked to learn she's a total hypocrite. And she got caught on camera by, I think, both the Daily Mail and the New York Post this morning. And she cried and ran back into her apartment. So she's not ready for prime time. We'll show you the pictures. You can't run around calling white people who own homes racist and say you have plans to devastate the white middle class or the middle class period and not expect a little blowback, sweetheart, when you become an administrative official for the greatest city in America. You're going to have a little blowback. We're going to need to talk about PR skills, and we'll do that in just a bit. We are bringing on the host of Next Up with Mark Halperin to do that. He is Mark Halperin, and his show is over on the MK Media Podcast Network. Go subscribe now on YouTube and all podcast platforms. Again, it's Next Up with Mark Halperin. You can find it. Just go to nextuphalperin.com, and it'll bring you to all of the platforms where you can enjoy Mark's work. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Let's be honest, no one's simmering bones for 24 hours anymore in their stovetop. But our bodies do still need the benefits of real bone broth, especially as we age. And that's where Paleo Valley's 100% grass-fed bone broth protein powder comes in. It's made from American cattle raised with regenerative farming practices. That's what you want to hear. Sourced only from bones and water. No chemicals, no fillers, no mystery ingredients. Collagen levels can drop fast after 30, and this protein helps replenish what's missing, supporting joint comfort, gut health, muscle recovery, and even smoother, more hydrated skin. It's perfect for busy people, just 30 seconds a day in coffee, smoothies, or hot water. Chocolate, vanilla, and salted caramel flavors can turn your morning drink into a collagen-rich treat. Or try Savory Original in soups and stews, and unflavored when you want a clean boost. Modern diets are missing collagen-rich foods. Paleo Valley makes it easy to get them back without the mess. Right now, you can get 15% off your first order at paleovalley.com with code Megyn. Mark, welcome back.
Happy New Year. Happy to be back, and I will try both not to cry or talk about UFOs. Do my best.
Many people are crying in the news today. We will not be two of them. It's insane. I guess we should start there. She's a nutcase, this woman, Sia Weaver. Not only did we see the reporting that we brought to the audience yesterday from X on what a lunatic this woman is, but now Unheard has released additional tweets of hers and comments of hers that just double down on the nuttiness. This woman does not appear to be very well. I mean, that's my only real take here. Like, something needs to be done about her. I'm going to kick it off by showing her. Okay, let's see. Oh, this is what she thinks should happen. This is just from October with our PTAs in New York. PTAs, which, you know, I'm a parent. The PTA worries about like teacher gifts around Christmas, fundraisers for the school, and like social dances for the children. Not according to Sia Weaver. They have bigger things on their plate, she thinks. SOT 22.
We should really look to what Brandon Johnson and as well as the Chicago Teachers Union is doing to really use the schools and the city as sites of resistance against a federal incursion. If you're comfortable in your coalition, you're not winning power. If ICE and the National Guard are coming to New York City, ICE is already here. If the National Guard is coming on January 1st, which we know they are, we really have to use our tenant associations and our parent-teacher associations and our public schools as like networks of defense in support of Zohran's agenda and in support of our neighbors.
Okay, so the PTA needs to be first line of defense against ICE. I'm looking forward to that in New York City. That's going to go swimmingly well. As all of this comes up, she sits down for a radio interview on, I think it was ABC. Yeah, it was a Spectrum News yesterday. And she is asked about Mayor Adams, the now former mayor of New York, about some of his criticism of her lunacy, like property is theft, moving to the suburbs is structural racism. You're not allowed to live in the suburbs, Mark. By the way, she lives in a totally gentrified Brooklyn neighborhood. She is one of the white people who moved into a minority neighborhood and paid too much money, thus increasing the rental and the real estate values, which is racist. And now the Daily Mail reveals that her mother lives in a $1.4 million home down in Nashville and is a teacher at Vanderbilt University and is a gentrifier herself. So she's a hypocrite. And she gets asked about some of her comments, like her homeownership is white supremacy comment on this Spectrum interview on Tuesday. Here's how that went. SOT 23B.
The former mayor, Eric Adams, said that you were, quote, out of your effing mind. That was in response to a resurfaced tweet from way back when, something you'd said on Twitter about home ownership being a tool of white supremacy. I wanted to give you a chance to respond. You're not out of your mind, right?
I don't think I'm out of my mind. Okay. I think that some of those things are certainly not how I would say things today and are regretful. But I do think my sort of decades of experience fighting for more affordable housing sort of stands on its own. I'm proud to be in this role fighting for stronger tenants' rights. And I think that for many years, people have been locked out of the property market that has produced a lot of systemic and racial inequalities in our system. And I want to make sure that everybody has a safe and affordable place to live, whether they rent or own. And that is something that I'm laser focused on in this new role.
Okay. So it's a timing issue, Mark. She wouldn't say those things these days, but she was young and naive back in like 2020, right, when she described America KKKA as an apartheid state and called for defunding the NYPD. Also said white people and corporate fucking Dems, who are also white people, were the problem after Donald Trump was elected. And then, of course, in 2018, called for ICE to be abolished. So she doesn't want cops. She doesn't want ICE. And in the not so distant past, also said that she celebrated the government's sacred right to seize property and appeared to call for the abolition of not just, quote, abusive landlordism, but private property in general. This is not when she was in middle school. This is just a couple of years ago, Mark Halperin. So what are we to make of Sia Weaver?
I mean, I think three things about the matter of Sia Weaver, Sia Weaver. First, when somebody says, oh, these were regrettable, like the reporter should say, let's walk through it. This is not a million years ago. What do you regret about it? So she's got a PR advisor telling her to say they're regrettable and think she can move on. Number two, how could she have gotten through a job interview? And I'm not just talking about the vetting of all these public statements. I'm talking about competence and the question of this mayor trying to prove himself that he's going to know how to run this city. How could she have survived a job interview? I don't get that. And then lastly, is just her demeanor freaks me out. I'll be honest about it. There's just something about her demeanor that is really unsettling to me. And as a resident of New York, I plan to go cover her if she stays in the job. But this is he's off to such I saw several stories saying he's off to a fast start. I don't know what else he's doing, but this lady is two anchors handcuffed around his ankles if he's trying to get off to a fast start.
Yes, her demeanor freaks me out too. And I'm going to overrule her PR advisor and give her some real PR advice. And she should actually listen to me. First of all, you desperately need, Sia, a little eyebrow pencil. It doesn't have to be excessively heavy, but you need to put some over your eyes. They're already very sunken to begin with. Something to define the space as where the eyes are would be helpful. And in that same genre, you should add a little mascara. Just a little. I mean, if we're really going to be honest, some bronzer and some lip gloss also would be your friends. I also have to talk to her about the crying. It's important, Mark. You've been in the public eye. You've been dragged many fucking times. It's a brutal business. They will take your worst moments. They will use them against you. They will tell the world you're a terrible, terrible person, whether you are or you aren't. It's sad, but it's true. That's life as a public figure these days. Well, poor Sia got caught by the Daily Mail and the New York Post outside of her gentrified place in Brooklyn. And instead of just saying, guys, whatever, I spoke to this on Spectrum News, or go home, she cried, Mark. She cried.
You know what I call her now?
It's all over the Daily Mail.
I call her.
What's that?
I call her Sad Sia.
Sad Sia. She cried on camera with the Daily Mail and the New York Post, and then she ran back inside her apartment. She cried and ran. This is a no. No matter how bad it gets, right? The whole press was telling the world that I was a pedophile lover 2 months ago. Did I cry? No. It's called being in the public eye. Yeah. They say terrible things about you. In Sia's case, it happens just to be a resurfacing of her actual words. That's fine. But you don't cry and you don't run inside when the Daily Mail shoves a camera in your face.
It doesn't bode well for the long-term prospering of Sad Sia. I do have a sound effect for Sad Sia when she cries. Yeah. Wah, wah, wah. That's my Sad Sia sound effect. Every time she cries, I'm going to just pump that out on social media.
It works, your sad trombone, because it's somewhat reminiscent of the Charlie Brown teacher.
Yeah.
And she looks just kind of like a Charlie Brown figure with like ill-defined features and just a round, super white face.
Yeah, and just black slits for eyes. She doesn't have
Here's
actual eyes.
The other thing. Yeah. Okay, so here's a little bit more on her from the Daily Mail. The privileged former Bryn Mawr college student, of course she is, her stunning hypocrisy was uncovered by the Daily Mail on Wednesday when we revealed her mother owned a gorgeous craftsman home in Nashville worth $1.4 million. The Tennessee city is America's fastest gentrifying. So it's not just gentrification, it's the fastest gentrifying that her mother lives in. So I guess she thinks her mother's a racist. But Weaver gave no indication to her family wealth and has now refused to say whether she will ask her mother to give up her private property, and also would not say what she's going to do if she inherits the mother's gentrified home in Nashville. Weaver lives in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, a historically black neighborhood whose longtime residents have also been priced out by white newcomers. And on it goes. Now she's deleted her X account and her Facebook account as well, where Unheard got to some of the posts that I kicked the segment off with. And I'm sorry, Mark, I don't know what Mayor Mamdani does with this. He doesn't seem to care, and maybe his voters won't care either. But he's in for a hot mess of stories with this person in charge of tenant housing who thinks government seizure of property is a great thing and that whites need to be deprived of their homes, at least if they're in the middle class.
Sad Sia has some regrets. Let's see how long she stays in this position. The mayor doesn't seem inclined to get rid of her, but I suspect she may not have deleted her MySpace account yet, and that's where people will head next to see what's on there for Sad Sia. I mean, again, the stuff is laughable, but I continue to wonder about this mayor. This is not the only personnel decision he's made, some having to do with past controversial statements and unacceptable statements, but some of it is just people who aren't qualified. And hypocrisy is unattractive. And I think we'll learn more about the life and times of Sad Sia, and she should explain this stuff. The lack of explanation, I think, is why this story will persist.
Well, and she can't. And it's not the timing. It's not that she was this young, errant child making these comments. Here's one from March of 2024. All right. Not even a year ago when she spoke to Sam Sater on the Majority Report, SOT 23.
The mechanisms for acquiring distressed housing could look different on a building by building basis. In some cases, what happens is tenants form a tenant association. They have a scofflaw landlord or someone who's not making repairs, and they could pressure, using organizing tactics, they could pressure to the Social Housing Development Authority to take over their homes, to buy their homes. In other cases, you might happen through like a legal process. A couple of days ago, one of the most notorious slumlords in the city, his name is Shalom. He was arrested because he is treating his tenants so badly, hundreds of thousands of open code violations. In cases like that, where the city is actively pursuing already sort of litigation and enforcement mechanisms against the landlord, the SHDA is an option. We can say, hey, you are not maintaining this building, and we are the city of New York. We have an interest in making sure that housing is well maintained, and we're going to take this building away from you.
Okay. That's going to be a real hit with the landlords of New York, Mark.
Well, there's a big New York Times piece about her, and it quotes one real estate person who's her friend favorably. But I suspect that was a bit of an outlier. And it's going to be interesting. The real estate industry is super powerful, one of the most powerful lobbyists in the city and players in the city. And it's going to be interesting to see. And I thought you showed awesome self-restraint in not commenting on how her hair looks in that clip.
I mean, that is how my hair looks when I'm getting ready for bed.
Yeah.
But this is not how you give an interview, Sia. Please, for the love of God. You know what? We have something exciting that we're going to be starting on the MK Media Podcast Network soon, Mark Halperin. I'll announce it shortly. I don't want to give it away just yet, but it can involve Sia. I could do some real good for this gal. She would just put herself in my good hands. I mean, obviously, she would have to quit her job first because I can't help her as she's behaving like a devil. By the way, when she ran inside of her home, chased by the Daily Mail, they noted that she has a Free Palestine poster taped to one of its windows. Okay, that's on brand. And it reminded me, her $1.4 million mother's house and her nice home in the gentrified Crown Heights area of Brooklyn, that when Zohran Mamdani, socialist, got sworn in along with his socialist wife, she was wearing boots that reportedly cost $650. It doesn't feel very socialisty. It doesn't. I'm pretty sure, because I just went on Amazon to get new winter boots for my kids, and you can definitely get nice ones for $60 on Amazon, like really good ones that you can be outside in Montana in. So I'm pretty sure you can be in Manhattan with something less than $650 boots, if in fact you're a true socialist, Mark Halperin. But all of these people are bullshit. This is an act for show, as is wokeism in general, to try to make you feel like you're better than other people.
You know the old phrase, limousine liberal. I call these sumptuous socialists. Yeah. Sumptuous socialists.
It makes sense. So, I mean, what do we do other than call them out on the hypocrisy, like the homes and the boots?
Well, let's see if she can do the job. I suspect, given her demeanor and her rhetoric, and her attitude, that government service may turn out not to be everything she's dreamed of doing. And let's see, a lot of what they want to do on housing will require the help of the governor, who is a bit of a mess, but not a socialist. And so let's see how long she's there. She may be available for your new surprise program before too long.
Now, speaking of crying, we have to talk about the new anchor of CBS Evening News. There's no crying in evening news. There might be some crying when a president is shot and assassinated right before your very eyes, like we saw with Walter Cronkite, though there was like a wiping of the eyes when he took off the glasses to report that JFK had been shot and killed. But that's as far as, that's right. That's as far as he went. That's as far as most evening news anchors would ever have gone traditionally. It's the dawn of a new day. I'm going to get to the incredible tape. Like, I literally could not believe my eyes. But I'm going to set it up first, okay? Tony Dokoupil is the new CBS evening anchor. And I've got to be honest, I believe he got the role because he gave, what's his name, Ta-Nehisi Coates, a challenging interview on CBS Mornings about his 10 days in Israel, where he then declared himself an expert, which was a ridiculous proposition, and no one had been challenging him, and Tony did a good job of that. And Barry is very, very pro-Israel. Trust me, I'm aware, because she just blew up our friendship over it. And even though I'm an Israel supporter, and she hired him. She liked what he did in that interview, I'm telling you, and that's why he got this job. It was over that interview on Israel. So, okay, he does a good job on Israel, but now he comes in and he says, I get it, I'm one of you. And he gave this whole thing about, how I'm going to be listening to you, not the experts. Well, that's honestly not the answer. Just follow the facts, please. It's not that you need the common viewer to tell you what the news is. You are too reliant on experts in mainstream news. That's true. But like the facts are what matters. It's so pandery to say like, I'm just going to listen to you and do what you tell me. That's not it either. So they're scrambling. They're desperate for viewers. They're not going to get them. The era of the evening news anchor is over. So nobody says it better, as far as I'm concerned, than Adam Carolla, who is such an astute observer of the media business and of life and of America. And he went on a tear yesterday in response to this Tony Dokoupil, like, oh, gee, no more experts, just you, and I'm going to listen. And I, too, have shared in your frustrations, none of which is evidenced by his own coverage over the years, by the way. He doesn't sound like a frustrated, I can't stand the mainstream news media anchor at all. But here's Adam Carolla responding to that bit, which we played yesterday on the show. But now here's Adam's response, SOT 28.
So he's going to explain to us with all these stories what happened.
Hunter Biden's laptop or the president's fitness for office. The point is, on too many stories, the press has missed the story because we've taken into account the perspective of advocates and not the average American.
All right, pause there. All right, that's fine. You didn't miss the story. You lied about the story. And yes, you did listen to advocates. By the way, you're not supposed to listen to advocates. You're supposed to go do the research and crunch the numbers, not listen to people who work for this organization or that organization who have an agenda. You don't need to talk to the average American either. You're a news organization. Does COVID kill healthy kids? No. Okay, we got our answer. Go do some fucking work. Yeah. Don't talk to me. Let's go do some journalisming.
I love him so much. Your thoughts on that take?
I like the phrase journalisming. Is that what he said? Journalisming.
Like as a verb. Yeah.
I haven't seen the show yet, so I don't know. I don't know what exactly they're doing on the show. I don't get this move towards the notion of we're going to talk to normal, ordinary people. At the same time, as you and I both know, all wisdom is not found in New York and Washington. So if they can find a way to infuse the journalism with a conception of what's really going on in the country, I'm all for that. But I don't understand the sort of concept of we're going to listen to what you want on the show or whatever it is they mean. I want to see how it plays out, but I don't get it.
But let me tell you something. That is bullshit. Pandering. That's what that was by Tony Dokoupil. Like, I'm going to be listening to you. I'm not going to be like these other guys. His coverage prior to taking this role does not support that he does that at all. And no one was making him be a biased leftist in the tank for leftist ideals. He's married to MSNBC's Katie Tur, which tells us a lot, first of all. Here he is. We just went back just to do a brief search to see how he covered some of the more controversial stories that have been in the news over the past few years. This is September 21st, 2021, talking about the alleged incident in which the very mean, bad Border Patrol whipped the Haitian migrants crossing the border. Watch.
Images along the border are shocking, and the bar is high for shocking images along the border. You've called them horrific. What did the president say? How did he feel when he saw them?
He also felt they were horrific and horrible. I don't know anyone who could watch that video and not have that emotion.
That looks like
this was more than 24 hours after it had broken that these were very questionable images, and the Reuters photographer was already saying that's not what they showed. But they ran with it. Tony Dokoupil got on there, set it up with Jen Psaki. Shocking, horrific. That was the misinformation they fed to their viewers. But now he wants to say it was all about the trust of experts, Mark, and he's going to be the one to correct that imbalance.
It looked like that lady from MSNBC a little bit. Pardon me, MS Now on there.
Yeah, right.
Look, you know this as well as anyone. The way to succeed as a communicator is to be true to who you really are and what you believe, and to be consistent. And he's going to have to explain as he goes forward. If he does want to build trust, which is what what they claim they want to do, he's going to have to explain moments like that and how they're consistent with the notion of the current ethos that they're espousing, or it's not going to work.
He ran into the leftist narrative because it was negative about Trump. He ran to it, as has his network from the start of Trump's emergence as a national political figure. So there is zero reason to believe that the new I'm listening to you, the common man, Tony Dokoupil, is going to do any better. And by the way, it's all the same producers there who have been there. And those are the ones who really generate the content. The anchor in that role is more of just a presenter.
Yeah, CBS has always been a producer-driven news division as compared to some other places, as opposed to, as you said, to correspondent and anchor. And, you know, they've fired some people. Some people have gone. But I absolutely agree with you. Unless they determine who's ready to be a fair-minded person and run a different kind of shop, the vision that David Allison and Barry Weiss have laid out is not going to be realized.
So back to Adam Carolla, who had further thoughts on why newsrooms, and you've worked in a lot of them, have deteriorated so, and in particular, gone woke. Watch.
Women are women first. Guys can separate. Shall we cover Hunter Biden's laptop? No, we should not. Why not? It's a news story. It hurts our guy.
Right.
And we hate the other guy. So it's gynofascism. We took women who are emotional, and that's good for raising kids, and it's good for many things.
It might be good for ratings for a while.
It's not good for journalism.
Yeah.
Okay, he's not wrong. He's not wrong that like the feminization of the approach to news did open a door to wokeism. It did. Like, lead with your heart. It's all about empathy, as opposed to just like, what are the facts? The facts are biological sex is biological sex and you cannot change it. That's just one example, okay? But here is where I am going to challenge my friend Adam. It is not just women who have feminized newsrooms. And here is where the crying I promised you comes in. Tony Dokoupil is trying to promote his new role as the evening news anchor, you know, in what was once Dan Rather's shoes, and before that, Walter Cronkite. And this video, I didn't ask for this video, Mark Halperin. I was watching Twitter, watching X, and you know how you play one video, and if it expires, another one just plays? That is how this came to me. It's not like we're stalking his social media. They put this out to promote his new role as the CBS evening news anchor. And Adam Carolla, you want to talk feminization of the newsroom? I give you the new CBS evening news anchor in a clip he's promoting.
You said this is your favorite place in the world. Why? Why South Florida and Miami?
Well, it makes me emotional. It's so funny. I didn't think it would catch it. You know,
he's crying.
Because you only have one child, right? So, let me get a second here.
He's wiping his eye.
I can relate. This is home.
Now his other eye. Now his first eye again.
People will, to help people understand why I have such a reaction.
Now his other eye. Now his
Florida
first
is
eye.
where I grew up.
First eye again.
We didn't get a lot of sleep.
Second eye.
Yeah, my grandmother's here, my father, my mother, my aunts and uncles, cousins. And it's where I would have spent all of my childhood, but we left because of my father. He got in some trouble with business. It's like, we laugh about it now, but he was a drug dealer. But the reason it's so emotional for me is because I feel like I was robbed of the full Miami experience. So when I come back, I'm always like,
oh my God. Oh my God. A no. It's a no. It's a no, Mark Halperin. I thought for sure that story was going to end in, and they were all killed in a house fire. I was the sole survivor. In which case I would have excused the multiple tears that preceded it. It turns out the dad had some problems. I'm sorry to hear it. The sobbing, the repeated, the voice quivering, the inability to recover. What is that?
First of all, the guy's got hella good hair. So I give him that. Look, it's the fact that they put it out, because I don't begrudge anybody crying over their family. I cry when I talk about my family sometimes.
You do too.
But I wouldn't. But I wouldn't put it out.
You would never cry like that on the air. You lie. You're just being a nice guy.
I'm saying I wouldn't.
Never.
Well, I might, but I wouldn't. But my point is, it wasn't live. They chose to put it out. The point you made originally. I don't know why they chose to put it out. It just. the feminization of news, it's in business, it's in universities, it's in the law, and it's a fascinating topic. And again, you don't need to publish everything. You can record something and then put that on the shelf.
Yes, I'm not going to name this person, but it reminded me after Charlie was killed, there was a certain news anchor who put out a clip. She's not on the air anymore. She's not on the television airwaves. She does what we do now. And she put out a clip and she promoted it on X, literally saying, "Here I am crying on the news of Charlie Kirk." What the hell? Who does that? Who's like, "Here, look at me cry"? It's so manipulative and weird.
Now, I cried live, but I didn't publish anything after the fact. Yeah, I hear you. I also like this thing. I like the left, the right, the left, right.
Over and over.
Good technique. Don't publish it. Put it on a hard drive.
Of course he loved it. At CBS they were like, it shows your personality. It shows heart. To me, it shows you're feminine. You're effeminate. You're not tough. You're not grizzled. You don't strike me as a shoe leather reporter, which is what I want in my evening news anchor. But let's be honest. Let's be fair to Tony. You got a guy over at ABC who's putting the clothespins on the back of his fake fireman's jacket so he can look like a fireman when he goes to cover the floods. David Muir, who's much more worried about the size of his waist than he is the accuracy of his broadcast. And if I'm being totally honest, Mark Halperin, before, Nora O'Donnell and whoever preceded her, nobody knows who the hell's been in that anchor chair for a while now. Dan Rather, he was also obsessed with his looks. This infamous clip of him worrying about his damn jacket and whether he's going to wear the collar up or wear the collar down tells us a lot about the state of evening news even before this guy got to the desk. Remember this?
The question is whether we can do it without the coat. Hi, folks. How you doing?
Let's take
without
a look
the coat?
and find out.
Jeff would prefer to do it without the coat.
It's going to be cold, but
That's good. You know what? The green is good.
Is it?
Not the light.
Green is good. Okay.
You don't need a scarf.
Don't need a scarf. Don't think so?
No.
Now, let's try it without it. If we wear the coat between now and then, I think that we're going to be all right.
All right, good. Good, because that looks very nice.
Now, does that look good?
It looks just a little hot on this side, Tom. But...
The broadcast is not for another 45 minutes.
Right. So,
temperature, wind will be up and the temperature will be down.
Yes.
What do you think? But it looks so windblown this way. I mean, I think the coat looks fine. I agree with you. The coat's subtle. But what do you think?
You do, if you wear the coat, take the collar down.
Definitely not.
You want the collar up?
I haven't seen this in years.
Nobody wears trench coat with the collar down. I think we ought to try to do it without it.
Okay.
That's what I honestly think.
That's what I honestly think.
The vanity. That's really what these jobs have turned into. Just an exercise in vanity, which is the least attractive quality, especially in a man. I'm sorry, but it is. Like, if you look at that clip, maybe they're spot on in picking this guy for the role. More crying, more worrying about, the poor whipped Haitians telling lies, just as long as you look empathetic and soft.
Do you not have the John Edwards clip of him doing his hair? That's the best. You know that one?
Oh, yeah?
You know what I'm talking about?
That's another one.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
That's a good one.
I mean, what do these men have in common? They're leftists. They're all leftists.
And they've got good hair. Those are the two through lines. You forgot also Katie Couric had that job.
Oh, yeah. I think I intentionally blocked that out. Can I tell you something? I'm not like a fan of Katie Couric's anchoring, but she's tougher than any of them. She's tougher than any one of those guys.
She is very tough. I agree. I concur with that.
That's the one they should have had cry in a segment, because
to feminize
women
her.
Are expected to be soft, and we don't need another crying feminine, worried about his waist news anchor in the evening news chair. Okay, let's keep going. Things in Minnesota are not going particularly well. Tim Walz has announced he's not going to run for re-election. And now we're learning, and DHS has swarmed 2,000 agents into Minneapolis to try to find out what's happening at these daycare centers and elsewhere, whether and how bad the fraud is. And then our pal Rich McHugh, over at News Nation was just calling attention to this morning. There is, hold on, I want to try to find it. I've got the report here someplace. Here it is. Try to follow this. Department of Human Services in Minnesota. And they've got a commissioner. And they are investigating whether a group within the Human Services group called the Behavioral Health Administration committed any sort of fraud. And this is an organization, the Behavioral Health, that helps manage hundreds of millions of dollars in grants to groups that are supposed to be preventing and treating mental health and substance use disorders in Minnesota. Okay. So behavioral health oversees hundreds of millions in grants to groups saying they're going to help people with their mental health and substance abuse. And its boss, the agency it's part of, Human Services, has decided it needs an audit. And the person doing the auditing is now on camera accusing them, like this is the subset of their agency, of defrauding her as she conducted her investigation of her group, of backdating documents, et cetera. I'm going to play you the soundbite. Watch this.
We noted that during the course of our audit, we identified a number of documents that the Behavioral Health Administration either backdated or created after our audit began in response to our request for information. Because we identified a number of different documents that, again, had been created in response to our request for documentation, or that had actually been created and then backdated, we do have some questions about the validity of the documentation we were provided. But I do want to talk about what a serious issue this is and how it is, frankly, unacceptable for the agencies we audit to do this type of activity.
Okay. This is yet another problem for Minnesota and Tim Walz. This is not the daycare. This is yet another problem. Behavioral health and substance abuse centers, where the own Minnesota auditor is saying, and this is in the write-up of it, you fabricated documentation to try to satisfy my audit. You backdated documents. You came up with false justifications for spending that were bullshit. And this is all taxpayer money, Mark. So Tim Walz is out there trying to blame I'm not going to run for re-election, literally on Donald Trump and his meanness. And I'll play you the soundbite. He tried to pivot to January 6th as some sort of relevant thing when defending his decision. And it appears that there is fraud rampant in virtually every organization under Tim Walz's control, Mark.
He better hope that the investigative reporting bandwidth of the state is filled up with other things, because even though he's not running for election, he is staying in office. And we've seen now what just human logic and human nature would tell you is the tip of the iceberg. And whether he's implicated in things or simply was a bad steward of the taxpayer dollars, it's not just state money, it's federal money as well. Like I said, he'll be fortunate if the parade moves on as opposed to digs in, because there's going to be a lot of fertile areas to look at. The question of how could this stewardship have occurred for a guy who put himself forward as one of the best governors in America.
Here's just one example out in that same behavioral health unit. Auditors found an organization that received $672,000 for a single month of work, for 1 month of work, but could not provide auditors with detailed invoices or program participant data to support the work. The total grant agreement for that group was $1.6 million. Amazing. So that's one little group that got money for this behavioral health nonsense that appears to have been made up. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, quoting here from an article from KSTP, appear deeply troubled by the revelation that department staff backdated or created documents that did not exist before the auditor's probe. They quote a local Republican saying, it's a shocking report by the legislative auditor, and it shows a culture of pervasive fraud, negligence, and deception. Here is how Tim Walz would have you believe things are going. He's explaining why he's not running for a third term, but he is absolutely not going to resign as governor. We'll go 15 into 16.
Governor, what decision to end your campaign by yourself, or did you receive pressure from Democratic allies?
This is a decision that I make and make with my family. And certainly, I think, as I said, it's the right decision. I'll note, I think it's appropriate we're here today. The war that's being waged against Minnesota, you're seeing it. We have a ridiculous surge of apparently 2,000 people not coordinating with us that are for a show of the cameras. I'm going to note to all of you, today is January 6th. There's no debate what happened. The President of the United States led an insurrection against a fair election to try and overturn that.
Okay. Here's the thing that I'm going to ask all of you is, Republicans want to tear this state down. Republicans want to tell you it's too dangerous to walk down the streets. Republicans want to tell you there's nothing good comes out of Minneapolis, St. Paul. Republicans want to tell you everybody with brown skin is stealing money or that they're not welcome here. They want to do nothing to improve this state. Their idea of improving this state is being a parrot for Donald Trump, agreeing to everything that he agreed with. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. It ain't happening. I'm not going anywhere. And you can make all your requests for me to resign over my dead body. Will that happen? I will fight this thing till the very end to make this state better. And the question that I think they need to decide is when did the guy in the White House resign? When does he take accountability for what he did? Because it isn't going to happen here.
All right, Mark, this appears to me in political terms to be best defense is a good offense. What's the reality?
Well, it's like, I don't know if you remember Nathan Thurm from Saturday Night Live when he would say, you're the one who's corrupt. Someone should be investigating you. I do wonder if he believes it, right? I wonder whether he believes what he's saying or it's purely just an act, because he's saying it with such emotion and passion and determination. But to pivot from accountability for his stewardship of the state and the taxpayer dollars to blaming it all on Donald Trump is quite something. But as I said, just as an observer of human beings and of the subspecies of human beings called politicians, I wonder whether he believes what he's saying or not.
Here's the thing. This fraud didn't happen just in December 2025. Right. This has been going on for years under his leadership. And that Rich McHugh story about the behavioral health unit within Department of Human Services in Minnesota, he pointed out there are tweets from, and I pulled them up, April 2024 from Minnesota staff. It's the account is from Minnesota staff at DHS. And they're asking, can the commissioner explain why Department of Human Services has been obstructing data requests in violation of government laws? Why are staff complaining that leaders are forcing them to delete records, backdate contracts, and cover up wrongdoing? Why does the Department of Human Services ignore requests from the news? Okay, so this is April of 24. Yeah. Maybe he was too busy trying to buddy up to the Biden administration at the time, or Joe Biden, thinking possibly there'd be a role for him in the next administration. This would have been before Kamala Harris took over as the nominee. But this is just, it's a worm's, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a hornet's nest, because it's just the one right now. Like you pull the one bee flew out. Now another bee is flowing out. Now it's a whole swarm coming out on this Somali fraud and other fraud. And I think it's gonna go state to state. Trump's already now threatening California. He's going to take a look over there. And let's face it, it's going to be largely in blue states, because it's the same thing as Minnesota, I'd venture to say, where they're worried about looking into anything that looks like harassment of a minority community. In this case, it has to do with immigration and immigrants who are taking advantage of us, not skin color, but immigrants who are taking advantage of hardworking Americans.
Yeah. The governor now is trying to convince people, as he declines to change his course and doesn't run for a term, that he has a zeal for ferreting out the wrongdoing. And that's belied by two things. It's belied by the fact that he was in charge when all this was happening, and there were indictments. There was clear indication. He showed no zeal to ferret this out for the reasons likely that you said. But the other thing is, I just don't find his performance compelling. If you're spending more time talking about Donald Trump and being defiant about not resigning than you are laying out a detailed plan rather than just some rhetoric about getting to the bottom of it, it's just hard to believe that there's a determination here. And I think there must have been horrible poll numbers to get him to decide he wasn't going to run for re-election, because That's what he was about. Somebody must have done a poll and found that his chances of winning, even in a blue state, were pretty miserable.
Are now zip.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Venezuela for a minute.
Yeah.
You say Marco Rubio's stock is rising. He was in that Vanity Fair interview saying if J.D. Vance runs, he's our nominee. So is it settled or is it not?
I think it's settled. They're genuine friends. Sometimes in politics, people say they're friends and they're not, but these guys are. And Rubio understands the reality. He's not gonna leapfrog over Vance if Vance decides to run. But the future will take care of itself. But what I traced on Next Up, and I think is just an incredible human story, is 10 years ago, this guy was calling Donald Trump was calling him Little Marco. And he was there. He was calling Trump a fraud, and he was making jokes about the size of Donald Trump's hands. And now he is so well thought of in general in the administration, and like Henry Kissinger, first person since Kissinger to have both the jobs of National Security Advisor and Secretary of State. And on this Latin America stuff, his influence is even greater because of his familiarity with the region as the son of Cuban immigrants, as someone very familiar with Latin American dictators and the culture and the language and the rhythms of this whole thing. So he's extremely powerful right now and extremely respected. And his ties to Vance, Trump, Susie Wiles, Stephen Miller, he's just rare to see this. And he doesn't have very many enemies. Even on Capitol Hill, where he served, where people are generally pissed off at the White House, he's very well respected, very well thought of. So this is a moment for him that's quite unusual in big-time Washington politics, to be hugely influential and very secure in his position, very well liked by his colleagues. It's unusual, and he's doing it at a time when the administration's foreign policy is just an overdrive. I mean, he lists 20 different hotspots around the world, including Venezuela, where there's a lot at stake and where he's got the hand on the tiller.
He was confirmed unanimously by the Senate to this post, which is very unusual for the Trump appointees.
Yep.
Since you've had a couple say, like, I regret voting for you, and he said your regret is a badge of honor.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to me when you think about 2028, Mark, because, okay, well, if Marco says if JD wants it, it's JD's. There's going to be a fight within the party because the more neocon-y right prefers Marco Rubio, who's, I wouldn't call him a neocon, but he's certainly more neocon friendly.
Yep.
And JD Vance is not. And I think, the more isolationist, non-interventionalist right is definitely going to prefer JD. And I've already seen some of my more neocon-y friends online say, slow your roll. It's not going to be a coronation of JD Vance. Like, they're much more interested in Marco Rubio. But if you're Marco Rubio, even though your stock is rising and, everyone likes him, how do you see it? Like, I think he'd probably do better with a general electorate than JD, but with the Republican base, who's going to win?
I think there'll be a ticket. I don't see any scenario where Rubio runs against Vance. Now, look, if the economy's bad, everything's kind of up in the air. But I think Vance will run, and I think he could do an unprecedented thing and pick Rubio as his running mate in 2027. Let them raise money together and raise $2 billion, literally, before the Democrats can pick their nominee. Get Trump's endorsement. I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen, but I could see it happening. Rubio's got young kids. He's a young guy. He doesn't need to run in 4 years or 8 years. He can wait. And if you talk to people in the party, again, things can change. But where we are now, it's very difficult to imagine someone, particularly a member of the president's cabinet, successfully mounting a challenge to J.D. Vance. And lastly, on the point you raised about ideology, Vance is talking lately like an interventionist, not an isolationist, not a MAGA first, America first. He's singing from the hymnal of saying, here's why we're doing all this activist stuff. And Rubio is talking less like a neocon these days. So I think they can mesh that up pretty well because it's the model's Trump, which is no foreign wars of deep entanglement, no forever wars, no American boots on the ground, but using American military and technology to project strength around the world. I think they're both on board for that.
I would love to see that ticket, but I don't know that it'll happen because if I think about why Trump picked JD, one of the arguments that was made to him was he's assassination insurance. That no one's going to want to take out Trump and wind up with JD Vance. Like they're not going to think they're going to do better with a JD than a Trump.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that same rule would apply in the heads of those who think about these things if Marco were the VP. I think he would be the preferred choice of many.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm not sure. I love the guy, but I'm trying to think like if I were the person who gets to make these selections, that's one of the things you got to think about. Anyway, we'll find out soon enough, Mark.
We will. I really do think they'll end up together. And, it's a lot like Clinton Gore. A lot of people thought, well, Al Gore's more qualified than Bill Clinton. But the alchemy of the two of them together, two younger guys with young kids, it just worked for the voters, both in the Democratic Party and more broadly. I think this could be very comparable to that.
All right. Well, great to see you, my friend. Thank you for being
Happy
here.
New Year again.
Coming up
See
next,
you soon.
You too. Happy New Year. A deep dive into the issue of UFOs or UAPs. I think it's safe to say that at all times, many of us feel at some point in our day sluggish, bloated, or not quite ourselves. Modern life is hard. Processed foods, too little sleep, endless stress, all of it can disrupt your gut, sap energy, and weaken immune health. Your body's not failing. It might just be starving for the right fuel. Let me tell you about Armra Colostrum, which they say can help provide sharper energy, less bloating, faster workout recovery, stronger hair, and glowing skin. It's nature's original superfood. Colostrum, with over 400 plus bioactive nutrients, they say can fortify your entire gut wall, nourish your microbiome, balance immune health, ignite metabolism, and fuel performance. Armra is not processed. It's a pure, humanely, and sustainably sourced whole food powerhouse. They say 4 daily scoops will rebuild you from the inside out for infinite benefits. Here's a special offer, too. 30% off your first subscription order. Go to Armra, ARMRA.com/Megyn, or just enter MEGYN to get 30% off your first subscription order. That's ARMRA.com/Megyn. There is breaking news right now, which I want to bring to you out of Minneapolis. As you know, we reported to you yesterday and also this morning on AM Update. Trump has surged 2,000 troops into Minneapolis, ICE agents, not troops, to go and DHS personnel investigate the fraud that has been coming to light day by day in that city. Well, we've just received this from a deputy secretary at Homeland Security named Tricia McLaughlin, who we've mentioned before. She's an assistant secretary of the DHS, who says today ICE officers in Minneapolis were conducting targeted operations when rioters began blocking ICE officers, and one of these violent rioters weaponized her vehicle, attempting to run over our law enforcement officers in an attempt to kill them, an act of domestic terrorism. An ICE officer, fearing for his life, the lives of his fellow law enforcement, and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training and saved his own life and that of his fellow officers. The alleged perpetrator was hit and is deceased. The ICE officers who were hurt are expected to make full recoveries. This is the direct consequence of constant attacks and demonization of our officers by sanctuary politicians who fuel and encourage rampant assaults on our law enforcement. These men and women who are simply enforcing the law on the books are facing a 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats. This is an evolving situation, and we will give the public more information as soon as it becomes available. Also, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey weighing in, saying, I'm aware of a shooting involving an ICE agent at 34th in Portland. The presence of federal immigration enforcement agents is causing chaos in our city. Is it really the presence? Or is it your unmanaged city from fraudsters to illegals running loose in Minneapolis, sir? He goes on to say, we're demanding ICE to leave the city immediately. We stand rock solid with our immigrant and refugee communities. Here is some video just in that was posted to X by a poster named Gunther Eagleman, who goes by Gunther Eagleman. His caption is chaos erupts in Minnesota, tear gas and pepper spray unleashed on radical protesters at, he claims this is the ICE shooting scene as they hurl snowballs, block cars, and riot against law enforcement. Let's watch it for a minute. Okay, so he grabbed this from Freedom News TV.
Get back!
The one we're crediting for this video. It's chaos. You can see the yellow pepper spray or tear gas looming in the air. Kill someone else, they're saying. This appears to be after the incident.
Kill someone else!
Cutting to a different scene. People are blocking, looks like the egress of a DHS vehicle. They're standing across the road so he can't go, and there's a DHS officer who's spraying them in the face with something that doesn't look very effective because they're not moving at all. It can't be tear gas or pepper spray because truly it's having no effect on them. Now they're grabbing them one by one to clear the path for the ICE vehicle to leave. They're standing right in the middle, right in front of it. Here's a protester literally on the grill of the DHS white SUV. This is very dangerous business. You just don't do this. The cops are trying to move him out of the way. They're spraying them to try to get them to move. People have umbrellas to guard their faces. DHS are trying to push them out of the way so that their vehicle can move.
Get out the way of the truck!
They don't have enough officers. The people keep infiltrating the road. Finally, the SUV moves forward. This appears to be aftermath of the protesters. All right, we can get out. This is going to become a thing for sure. You know Tim Walz is 2 minutes from taking to the airwaves to blame Donald Trump for the innocent loss of life. Well, you know what you shouldn't do? You really shouldn't get in the path of DHS, and you definitely should not try to run them over with your car. I think most of us, if that in fact is what happened, would expect to be shot dead. If you take your vehicle, which is a dangerous instrument under the law, and you try to run someone over, which is a direct provocation and attack on law enforcement, you should expect deadly force to be used against you. That's what DHS is saying happened. I wouldn't be surprised if this is caught on tape because these people were taping it. There were independent news agencies there getting some of the chaos on camera. And we saw this happen to DHS in another city. Was it Charlotte, where the woman tried to run over the DHS agent, and they unloaded a firearm against her or shot her, and she got shot. She lived and she drove herself to the hospital. Do you guys remember this report we brought you a month or so ago? She lived, but you cannot try to attack DHS with your truck. And by the way, if they had run over that guy right in front of their vehicle, he wouldn't have much of a leg to stand on either. Like, it's called assuming the risk. You don't intentionally try to murder somebody with your truck, whether you're a civilian or a DHS agent. I mean, I can say more for the DHS's restraint than I can for the protester if what Homeland Security is saying is true, that actually there was someone who used their vehicle to try to hurt or kill ICE agents. This is so unfortunate. There are, 34,000? I think that's what we reported, 34,000 illegals there in Minneapolis. And some huge portion of them have been convicted of crimes or accused of crimes. And Trump, slowly but surely, city by city, is trying to clean the situation up. And by the way, a large faction of them in Minneapolis is also accused of committing fraud. Whether they're legal or not, I don't know. It kind of doesn't matter. Either way, they're not American. And they're stealing from American citizens who work hard. But this is going to become a thing. For sure. We'll stay on it. Now I want to turn to the scheduled segment. It's the age-old question that has fascinated humans for centuries and continues to. Are we alone in the universe or even on our own planet? My next guest says not only are UFOs, or now they're called UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena, that's hard to remember, but UAPs, real, but the government has allegedly been aware of them for decades and running a disinformation campaign to make you feel like an idiot if you believe reports about them. David Grusch is a former U.S. Air Force intelligence officer and senior intelligence official. He was his agency's co-lead in UAP investigation and, quote, trans-medium object analysis, and was reporting to the Pentagon's UAP task force as well. In 2023, Grusch filed a whistleblower complaint asserting that the United States has been operating a, quote, multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, meaning we're taking what we find, vehicles, and trying to figure out how they operated, and that Congress has been kept in the dark about large portions of the program. He later testified under oath before the House Oversight Committee, drawing national attention when he made this claim here. Watch.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
So he's alleging that we have crafts and we have non-human biologics from those crafts, and that the American people are being kept in the dark about it. And he is not alone. He is not alone. Now, Pentagon officials have publicly denied that there's any verified evidence of non-human intelligence or secret programs of this kind. They've been denying it for 80 years. But now a new documentary called The Age of Disclosure is taking center stage. It's extraordinary, examining decades of this alleged secrecy, and they have everyone in this film. The film features interviews with 34 former and current government officials, including Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who is also coming on in just a moment, who claim the U.S. has long been concealing evidence of non-human intelligence and UAPs. Here's a part of the trailer.
Humanity is not the only intelligence in the universe.
Humanity is not the only intelligent species.
We are absolutely not alone. Non-human intelligence exists.
UAPs are real, they're here, and they're not human.
I have seen with my own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings.
This is so secret. Very, very few people in our entire government have been allowed access to it.
Even presidents have been operating on a need-to-know basis, but that begins to ramp out of control.
It's not acceptable to have secret parts of government that no one ever sees.
You better be careful about a government that doesn't trust its people, because there's no telling what they'll pull on you.
It's extraordinary. Let's get into it. David joins me now. David, thank you so much for your service and for being here.
Thanks, Mel. Excuse me. Thanks, Megyn. Thank you for having me on.
No worries. This is like a crazy story and a stunning story and disturbing. And I have to tell you, I've always been sort of open-minded to this issue, but more skeptical. And my skepticism is gone having watched The Age of Disclosure. It's incredibly well done. And they've got everybody. I mean, all of the like astrophysicists and extremely well-educated and accomplished scientists who have been investigating this from the start. Well, not the start because it was 80 years ago, but in recent decades, on camera, on the record, saying as much as they can. And the director of the film has been making the rounds saying the only reason he was able to get so many people to participate is because they felt there was safety in numbers and that they couldn't either fire everyone or worse, because a lot of these guys, these are distinguished guys, served in the Air Force like yourself or served at the Pentagon, served all over the armed forces. A lot of these guys are actually worried not just about their careers getting killed, but about themselves getting killed. I mean, set it up for us on the stakes of the number of people who went on camera and actually started saying as much as they could without violating classified restrictions.
Certainly, that's a real fear, and we can certainly get into that. Age of Disclosure was a project I didn't fully participate in. However, I do applaud the effort in these individuals for at least coming forward and speaking. And like you, I was a very skeptical person. I was certainly open to the topic. I was interested in space and science in a very precocious way as a child. I ended up studying physics, and the Air Force gave me a full ride scholarship. And I was obviously open to the topic, but I was in positions of high trust in the government at the most extreme levels, having walked the halls of the West Wing, personally handled the presidential daily intelligence brief, and had some of the same broad accesses that the president and his cabinet has had over the years, even as a young man across multiple administrations. I figured when I was eventually brought into this topic, working for the UAP task force, I would know this exists. Somebody would have slipped and said something to me. At the time, I was briefed to over 90% of all Black programs in the Department of Defense and also the intelligence community. And I had an arrogant opinion of the topic. I was certainly open to the idea, but I figured I haven't seen any evidence, and I would have been briefed into those kind of things because I had a need to know at the time. So I came into it very similar to you, but open-minded.
And then what specifically were you assigned to where you started to see actual evidence that we've been researching this for 80 years, that we do have crafts recovered, that we have quote biologics recovered, which include some sort of other being? And what was your reaction when you started to learn this?
Yeah, I was very skeptical. I was in my military capacity. I had a parallel civilian intelligence career as well. But in my military reserve capacity, I was the backup intelligence director for the National Reconnaissance Office's Operations Center. I briefed the NRO director. That's where I handled the PDB. And I handled essentially all sensitive activities.
Presidential Daily Brief.
And all that stuff. And so the UAP task force was looking for a representative from that organization. I came in as a skeptical eye, having briefed to a lot of U.S. programs, and I was thinking, I'll figure out what this is. This might be some kind of U.S. program, some prosaic natural phenomenon, some kind of adversarial program, some strategic technical surprise. But eventually, as I started pulsing my networks, digging into archives where we'll just say certain programs forgot to fully clean out safe drawers, and finding both audiovisual documentation and then interviewing over 40 people all the way up to, I'll just say the cabinet level over the course of 4 years. So a combination of oral testimony, audiovisual evidence, and documentation, I became convinced at a high confidence level that the U.S. has engaged in a crash retrieval and reverse engineering operation of, like the trailer you just played said, non-human crafts and recovering, the biologics as well. And I say high confidence as somebody who's written assessments for the President of the United States. I take that assessment very seriously and that confidence level very seriously. But as somebody who was in very high positions of trust over the years, I can assure you that is an accurate statement that the U.S. government, its private partners, allies, and adversaries do have programs. We're doing this exact thing.
Many in our audience may know you, David. You've been kind of really celebrated for people for coming out as a whistleblower and calling attention to the fact that our government's been hiding this from us. And even when told to disclose what they know to investigators and to the public or to the overseers, they haven't. There's a deeper program called the Legacy Program that has really seems to have been trying to hide the most shocking pieces of what we know from even the UAP task force. We've had Lou Elizondo on this show, and he talked to us about some of what we'd learned. This is years ago. I mean, it was when we first launched the program in 2020. But here he is as part of the documentary, Age of Disclosure, speaking to what this Legacy Program has uncovered. I'm just going to run the SOT 54 here.
We discovered another deeply hidden and much larger UAP program. This program was so sensitive that it was withheld from the Secretary of Defense, Congress, and even the President of the United States. This program is referred to as the Legacy Program. This program had been capturing, retrieving, and reverse engineering UAPs since at least 1947. On numerous occasions, these retrievals included the bodies of non-humans, some sort of intelligent being that is not human.
On numerous occasions. I mean, that is just stunning, David. To like people who don't follow this, he's saying they found some sort of alien beings' bodies along with the crafts, that the government has had it for decades. It's happened multiple times, and that they're all, the whole theory of the entire movie with all of these storied experts, these are not crackpots. I mean, if they're crackpots, boy, they found dozens of them who have been at the highest levels of our government over generations, who are all saying, yes, this has happened. And the reason that they keep it secret from everyone, including, they point out in the piece, our own presidents over time, is what?
Well, it depends on the time epoch in which administration. Certainly, there were former secretaries of defense and presidents that were briefed on this matter. It depended on their level of trust that the deep state, if you will, the lifers in the governments had with those said individuals. And unfortunately, this subject has been a victim of a lot of, I'll call it domestic information operations, something I discussed initially publicly in 2023. And there's certainly been this Game of Thrones activity with multiple factions of the deep state in a bipartisan manner. The Republicans and the Democrats are both guilty. And even in a recent previous administration, in the Obama administration, there was certainly actions taken strategically to help a particular presidential candidate, possibly if this subject were to become normalized and they got elected president. So there's been a lot of gamesmanship and a lot of, I'll call it house of cards type activities in the past. But it is true that a lot of people have been withheld. I found it deeply disgusting and shocking that even I was not fully accessed into these activities, and I did have a congressionally mandated need to know. I investigated this on behalf of the first Trump administration and some of Trump's cabinet members, and Senator Rubio when he was a senator, now Secretary Rubio, and providing my findings up the chain. I was just very disturbed to find how this was controlled, the self-licking ice cream cone, unaccountable. Everybody owns a piece. Nobody owns the outcome, and there's not really a mob boss. The closest person we got that I was aware of was, unfortunately, now deceased Vice President Dick Cheney, Darth Vader himself. Not shocking that he was involved in this. And essentially, when he left in 2009, that was the last time that these activities really had central leadership.
Yeah, because the film posits that, the current and the last head of CIA probably don't know, but there's like lower branches within the CIA that have specific responsibilities, and the career employees there probably do. And they don't look at the political appointees brought in by a president as someone to whom they need to disclose anything. They're like, this guy's going to be gone in, a year, 2 years, 4 at the most. I'm not going to keep disclosing this to person after person. I'm keeping this very dark, as my predecessor did. And it also posits that when it's super secret, they've been offloading the research to private contractors, and that way they don't have to include any of these disclosures in response to FOIA requests made of the federal government, because it's been given to a private entity. But that too leads to no accountability and no person over the life of 20 years who's got real responsibility, because companies get sold, new people come in, and then these companies may just exploit the materials for the latest technological advantage. Who knows, like, I don't know, some AI development or some fast speed train development that a company may have used the information to build a commercial advantage with.
That's totally true. You actually accurately described how it is. Early on the global war on terror, a lot of the money that was initially given to these companies was essentially reallocated for overseas contingency operations. And these contractors essentially started to do their own thing, if you will, something called IRAD, Internal Research and Development. And privately, they continued certain things that actually the government was trying to cancel as it relates to the subject. And they went off and retrieved and exploited things essentially on their own, and only loosely accountable back to their government handlers. And it's funny you mentioned the CIA. Naturally, there's a lot of good men and women that work there. My wife actually was a CIA officer, and she also served in the Air Force with me. But Chairwoman Luna and the task force and the committee staff, certainly I assisted in my other professional capacity, helping Representative Burleson's office, did send legal interrogatives to several agencies and private companies. CIA was one of them, and curiously enough, CIA provided what I considered an extremely disrespectful response. They declined to answer our interrogatives on this matter, which is their participation in crash retrieval operations, and just referred us to the Pentagon's Aero Office, which has a nebulous and concerning history in itself. And I just find it very interesting that CIA did that. Now, I'm not saying John Ratcliffe or Michael Ellis, who's the acting general counsel and deputy director, had a hand in that response, but they certainly are the leaders of their organization. John Ratcliffe has spoke positively on this issue previously, and I would hope that John Ratcliffe was placed there by DNI Gabbard and the president to enact some reforms on the CIA. And unfortunately, the CIA has a lot of skeletons in its closets. Other things I know about that I can't talk about that are conventional national security issues, but the crash retrieval issue, unfortunately, is certainly one of them, and they've done a lot of concerning things.
What's being alleged by you and many others is that they have literal skeletons in their closet or whatever
they do,
whatever's inside an alien being. Because it sounds crazy. Just throw it out there, short form. It sounds crazy, but person after person, distinguished scientist after intel person is making the same claim, validating the stories about Roswell, telling other stories that have happened at many military facilities with what appears to be a clear alien craft coming overhead, looking almost diamond-like in shape, being huge, sitting there hovering, coming from something like 80,000 feet and dropping down, then hovering in a way that no vehicle that we know of right now could possibly do, nothing invented by man. Here is a montage from the movie of top U.S. officials talking about how all of this is relevant because it may pose a serious national security threat. It's SOP 42.
We've had repeated instances of something operating in the airspace over restricted nuclear facilities, and it's not ours, and we don't know whose it is. That alone, just that statement alone, deserves inquiry, deserves attention, deserves focus.
If you have objects in the sky that you cannot identify, that's a problem because it could be China, it could be Russia, it could be any adversary.
Well, any unexplained phenomenon could pose a national security threat.
Clapper.
That's the way you have to treat those things.
There's something violating our airspace. There's something fouling our ranges that even the people we've tasked in the executive branch to understand this cannot provide an explanation. So I would say, in addition to the national security implications, this has implications for basic trust and confidence in the American government.
I just want to play one more. Here we have a former Navy pilot describing the UAPs defying extreme weather and physics in SOP 45.
In 2014 to 2015, we were operating off the coast of Virginia Beach, off the eastern seaboard. It was during this time that we upgraded our radar from the APG-73 to the APG-79 radar. And this allowed us to essentially see more objects we weren't expecting to see. And there's a particular case of one of these objects maintaining a complete stationary position inside of 120 knot winds, essentially inside of a hurricane.
They're going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. So this thing, it's rotated.
It just seems like they're not affected by the environment the way we are.
And there's testimonial after testimonial like that, David. That's not unique to have an experienced fighter pilot. Like our men and women in the military have been quietly coming forward and reporting on this for a long time, only to be told, keep your mouth shut.
No, that's true. And I have Air Force pilot friends of mine that have seen astounding things while on duty, to include a glowing triangular craft, hovering above other aircraft cruising at 50,000 feet. And I did want to point out General Clapper, the former DNI in the documentary. Mm-hmm. I certainly applaud him for at least speaking out in general. He goes on, I believe, I've only seen clips of Age of Disclosure, not the whole thing, where there was a program when he was the Director of National Intelligence where they were tracking these vehicles over Area 51, of course, the famed classified test location. And I'm a little bit disappointed as a fellow Air Force officer, and certainly General Clapper rose to the ranks as 3-star general. That's all he said in the documentary, that was a program he was aware of. In fact, without being inappropriate, I will say that General Clapper was well aware of the crash retrieval issue, managed the crash retrieval issue, and when he was the DNI, USDI, and DIA director, he placed people in critical roles to manage this issue, both publicly and I'll just say non-publicly as well. And I'll allow the audience distill what I'm saying at the risk of being inappropriate or going too far with my discussion. So General Clapper, Stephanie O'Sullivan, other folks in the IC that are well aware of this issue, that were in rooms discussing this issue. I ask you to be greater leaders on this. I should not be the only former military officer and intelligence official that is being completely candid with the information that they were exposed to. So perhaps
once again, James Clapper understates what he knows and what he's done, not wittingly. I want to talk about Marco Rubio because it really is extraordinary to see him on camera participating so willingly in this, so fully. And here is how he phrased the dangers and the risks of this whole thing, especially like the secrecy around it in SOT 43.
Some of the biggest strategic blunders in human history. The foundation of those blunders were a lack of imagination, the belief that an adversary or whoever could not do something because it had never been done before. The U.S. thought it was safe with those ships in Pearl Harbor because we didn't think that the Japanese could get there, much less have torpedoes that could navigate such a narrow strait and hit these ships until they did. We never thought in our wildest dreams that terrorists would strike us in the homeland by training for a year to become pilots and then hijacking commercial aircraft and crashing them into buildings. And they did. The thing that always keeps me up at night, something in the human psyche that says, I don't have time or energy to sort of prepare for the unforeseen or what I've never seen done before. And that leads to strategic surprise and sometimes strategic surprises that change the course of human history.
What do you think, David, that he should do? You know, if Marco Rubio called you tomorrow and said, what should we do about this? What would you say?
Yeah, he certainly gave a deflated response on Hannity recently, saying he has no ability to investigate. Certainly as a national security advisor, Secretary of State and the Chief Archivist of the United States, which that last position is actually very important because under National Archives, they manage the public interest, the classification board. And between that and the Presidential Intelligence Advisory Board, currently chaired by Mr. Devin Nunes, and his connection to the cabinet officials, certainly Secretary Rubio or National Security Advisor Rubio should authorize a legal and lawful investigation using resources in the Department of Justice and the Internal Revenue Service, because there's been a lot of procurement fraud, a lot of misappropriation of funds, also white-collar and blue-collar crime, to include harming officials. So certainly...
Wait, but where would he start? Whose tires would he kick first?
That's a question, or she's an answer I would provide in person in a prescriptive manner behind the scenes. Certainly, there are elements within the Central Intelligence Agency Director of Science and Technology. I would start there. There are certain career officials that are still there that manage the issue. There are certain officials that are long-timers in the Office of the Director of National Intelligence that have been there for a very, very long time. That's also helped manage this issue for a while. So I certainly have the Rolodex of names, offices, and I certainly have bumped into the halls and walls, facilities where everything is. So I think it's Secretary Rubio liaising with the Vice President and President Trump, getting the boss's strategic vision on this, how they would like to proceed publicly but privately, and start going after some of those agencies. And the Department of the Air Force, particular offices and organizations within there that are very near and dear to my heart, were also involved. So I have to be a little evasive and vague publicly. I don't like to tip off
You're
the
already
target.
doing so much to,
Yeah.
to tell us what we need to know. I appreciate it. I know there's certain lines you can't cross or you get in trouble. Just to sort of broad brush it now for people who haven't seen the movie, who haven't been following you and your whistleblower complaint and your testimony before Congress. For the person sitting at home right now, David, saying, this is bullshit. You know, like he hasn't seen an alien craft. So how does he know? Like what's the best evidence? Like what can we say is now having watched it? Like I am totally on board. I am very persuaded. But what do you think is the best evidence for the people sitting at home to understand this is real and it has been kept secret by the government? And the reason they're so skeptical about it is in large part due to an active disinformation campaign that's been unleashed against them and our society for decades now to try to make it seem crazy to talk about this.
Yeah, certainly that was a private finding of the Robertson panel in 1953, and that's kind of when the disinformation campaign ensued. The best piece of evidence that is very obscure, that is declassified, there was a former classified Australian government analysis that is currently in the Australian National Archives. It was declassified several years ago, but really the public doesn't really know about it. This was a 1971 analysis by senior physicist Harry Turner, who was in charge of nuclear procurement for the Australian governments in the 60s and 70s. He was a top secret cleared senior physicist for the government. And through his sourcing, and this is a formally classified assessment of an allied government, Harry Turner discusses in the first couple pages of that assessment, if people download it and go to page 7 or 8 through 20, they'll see what I'm talking about, where Turner talks about how the CIA and other organizations secretly knew this was a real issue, started that disinformation campaign, started secretly working on reversing aspects of the technology. But the U.S. government was deadly serious on the topic at the time. And it's quite the eyebrow raiser if you actually read that document that was originally classified and is an official Australian government document that the public is not really aware of just because it's obscure, if you will. And then, of course, the only other thing to mention is there is certainly a myriad of declassified government documents, U.S. government documents, discussing the same craft morphologies. The Tic Tac of today was the propane tank in 1953 when Air Force OSI was investigating things for their
The Tic Tac reference is what many pilots have said they've seen flying in the sky. Once we got better radar, they started to see what looks like the shape of a Tic Tac in the sky, but it has propulsion abilities and hovering abilities that no craft made by man has. And it's been confusing decorated, respected pilots for some time now since we improved that radar. And it does no one any good just to call them all a bunch of kooks. They're all a bunch of nuts. If so, we've got a lot of very nutty, respected pilots who we've put in the most dangerous positions possible, in addition to those in the intel communities and like you, who have responsibility for investigating things like this. You've shown a lot of courage, David. Thank you for telling your story.
Thank you, Megyn, for having me on.
All right, coming up, as I mentioned, Representative Anna Paulina Luna of Florida has been very outspoken about this issue. She's in the documentary as well, and she is here next. You know how much my family and I love our dogs, right? Even sweet Strudwick, my goodness, he was naughty over the holiday season. You will read about it in our newsletter. But man, oh man. Strudwick, he's as cute as ever, and sadly, as naughty, depending on the circumstances. Nonetheless, I love him, and I can't imagine life without either one of my doggos. They've got a great life, but some dogs are not so lucky. And that's why I'm so glad to tell you about Delta Rescue. It's the largest no-kill, care-for-life animal sanctuary in the world. They have rescued thousands of dogs, plus cats and horses too. They provide all the animals with shelter, safety, and most of all, love. And they've been doing it for more than 45 years now. Delta Rescue relies solely on contributions to stay open, and giving can bring tax benefits to you too. Speak to your estate planner about how you can grow your estate while helping animals in need, and check out the estate planning tab on their website to learn more. We love our Thunder and Strudwick, but would like other dogs who need love to find it too. Visit deltarescue.org today to learn more. That's deltarescue.org. I just want to update you before we bring in the Congresswoman on this shooting that's happened in Minneapolis of a civilian by, I think, an ICE agent, certainly a DHS agent. The video has just come in via social media, and I'll try to describe what it is we're seeing. Let's play it. Okay, you have a parked maroon SUV. ICE pulls up in a gray truck. An officer comes out. He's walking over to the parked SUV. Another officer comes from another car and is at the front. The woman backs up.
Shame! Oh my fucking God! What the fuck?
And they appear to shoot her as she drives away.
What the fuck did you do?
And she's dead. Let's re-rack it.
You are fucking criminals! You're fucking criminals!
Let's re-rack it. Okay, so she's parked. She's not going anywhere. She's got the brake lights on. She's not moving. The ICE agent gets out of a gray truck, pickup truck. He walks over to the front driver's side along with another agent. Now she backs up. She's trying to go away. That's clear. She's trying to run away. And it appears one of them shoots her. The video doesn't make... There's two officers on the left. There's one on the right. And one of them fires into the car. I don't know which one. She was... It was the one on the front right, Deb? Because there's two on the driver's side and there's one on the passenger side.
What the fuck?
Okay, so it's the one in the very front who was potentially in danger by her driving, but that will be a point of contention. Yeah, this is not going to be a one-day story, I can tell you that. This is going to keep going. She clearly was trying to drive away against the commands of the officers, but there'll be a big dispute about whether the unloading of the gun was appropriate in these circumstances. You heard DHS claiming the officer was in fear for his life and that of others. They were right next to her SUV as she tried to pull away. But whether their fear of deadly force from her driving out of their range was justified will be an issue that we're going to be debating. And you're already getting plenty of condemnation from people, as I said, like Mayor Fry and others quick to weigh in against ICE. We'll wait until we see more and know more. In the meantime, I want to bring in Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna of Florida. She's the chairwoman of the task force on the declassification of federal secrets. Think of that. There's a task force on the declassification of federal secrets. That's a great group to be the chairwoman of. She's been holding hearings, pushing the federal government for transparency on UAPs and other classified programs. Here's just one moment from one of those hearings. Watch this.
The public should be seeing this stuff. And why you're not allowed to, I don't know. But that's a Hellfire missile smacking into that UFO and just bounced right off. And it kept going.
Look, I'd like to ask the committee to replay that video that Burleson had played earlier.
Showing the video.
Are you aware of anything in the government, United States government arsenal that can split a Hellfire missile like this?
No.
And do whatever blob thing it did and then keep going? Nothing?
Nothing.
All right. Okay. Does this video scare you guys? Yes or no?
Yes.
Wiggins?
Yes.
Nat?
I had a different reaction. I was really happy that it got out.
Representative Luna is also fighting for stronger protections for whistleblowers like David Grusch, our first guest. She's a veteran of the U.S. Air Force, and she has said that she personally had an encounter herself with an object she believes was likely a UAP. She joins me now for the first time. Representative, great to have you.
Nice to have you, Megan.
Thanks for being here. So, okay, this is, I'm going to be honest, when you hear this out of the blue without having sat through the hearing or watched the latest documentary, you think, is everybody nuts? Like, are they all in on it? Is it like me? But I've heard you talk about this so many times, matter-of-factly on Joe Rogan and in the halls of Congress. I believe you, and I believe you believe it. And having watched this documentary, now I believe it too. Boy, if it's a lie, they got a lot of storied scientists to spew a bunch of nonsense at risk to their own careers and reputations about it. You've run the hearings. You've talked to countless guys who have been investigating this for years. What's your conclusion?
Look, we, especially from a national security perspective, want to know why it is that if these things or if whatever this is real, why is it, first of all, that members of Congress who serve as the oversight authority for the civilian arm, really the American people, are being denied access to the videos and photos of what we displayed in that hearing? Megyn, Representative Burleson had that video dead dropped to him. It was scrubbed with any data that could point to who gave the information to him. But that is a confirmed real video. And as you were seeing, that is a type of footage that, unless it is basically leaked to us, we're being denied access to, specifically out of the Department of War. Now, this goes way back to last Congress, actually, when myself, Representative Gates, and Representative Burchett had actually done a field hearing following up on two whistleblowers, or a few whistleblowers that had come forward to Representative Gates' office that were pilots at Eglin Air Force Base, alleging that the U.S. government was covering this up. Of course, when you hear something like that, you're like, all right, you've seen this in sci-fi films or heard rumors about this, but never have dealt with it directly. And then basically, in a nutshell, Representative Gates, Burchett, and I went out to Eglin. And of course, they tried to cancel the meeting. We got the meeting back on. And then once we were there, we were actually denied access. We got into a massive fight with the base commander. We went in and out of the skiff. And then ultimately, without saying too much, part of how we got some of the information that we did is I actually had asked one of the witnesses to draw for me the photograph or the image of this thing that was essentially being denied to us. So they're denying us the actual imagery, but the military officer was able to actually draw it for me, of which I'm sure they didn't think that we were going to ask them to do that, but we did. And again, even dating back to my own military experience, there was one point when I was stationed at Portland Air National Guard prior to leaving active duty. And at that point in time, there was an airspace incursion that had taken place that some of the pilots had been talking about. One specifically, I said, what is this thing specifically? Are you able to describe it? He couldn't. He got kind of spooked talking about it. And that's in my opinion, he definitely ran into a UAP or saw a UAP or they're chasing one. But that is not the first time that we've had pilots in fear of losing their flight status for coming forward with this information. So I kind of started as a skeptic, but after leading into the investigations, after seeing some of the footage like you saw in that hearing, after talking to a number of people, not people that are driving Winnebagos wearing tinfoil, but legitimate, credible people, it definitely seems real.
Mm-hmm. I see Air Force pilots talking about over and over encountering these things that come out of nowhere that can do things no aircraft could. I believe them. They have absolutely no reason to lie about it, and they have every reason to not lie, to not say that they saw that when they did. So you can see their reluctance in even talking about it. They don't want to be seen as a kook, but they saw what they saw. In the documentary, The Age of Disclosure, they do have former, it's called ATIP, and it's a group that's been investigating all of this for some time, officials talking about a breakthrough theory and how they think these UAPs operate, and it would explain some of the experiences people have had with them. Take a listen here to SOP 46.
This one breakthrough can be the key to interstellar travel, where you want to travel long distances without taking enormous amounts of subjective time. We'd also have low observability because the bubble acts as a barrier between two space-time environments. This would eliminate or conceal most of the known signatures of conventional technologies. This is why radar would have difficulty tracking a craft, because the signal from the radar would be distorted by the energy field around the craft.
The radar signatures literally just move around the bubble and doesn't reflect back to the radar emitter.
So it's not surprising when someone takes a photo of a UAP, they find they get a fuzzy and distorted picture because they're actually taking a photo through a space-time barrier.
Do you know any of these guys, Representative? Because these quantum physicists that were all throughout this movie were very impressive, and they've been seriously and soberly trying to study this for some time.
Yeah, I believe I actually had gone into the skiff with one of them, and there are a number of other people who I think would back up these theories on it, not to mention when you're talking about a barrier or maybe something surrounding these things, there have been instances and reports from firsthand witnesses that these things do have a bubble, if you will call it that, But what's even kind of crazier to see, Megyn, is that, if this wasn't real, then why would the U.S. government or elements within the U.S. government be working so hard to make it difficult for us to say, okay, is this real? Is this not real? Can we see the evidence? The fact is that the pushback that we've received has been so incredibly obvious at this point that it just kind of furthers our own opinions on there are people that are controlling this information. And there does seem to be, even outside of the purview of, I think, sometimes our own secretaries who have the best intentions on declassifying this stuff, there is this internal intelligence battle on this topic. And so, you're talking earlier about whistleblower protections. One of the things that we're going to have to do, because what I did not want to do is host just another hearing with more witness testimony without providing the documents and evidence. I think that would probably be a waste of resources unless we can provide that directly to the American people. And we have received a list. I think it's over about 40 different documents to actually be able to get that information, to provide it, but also to bring forward legislation out of oversight. And actually just left a hearing earlier talking to the chairman about it, to actually bring forward immunity for all of the people, some of them in the film, some personally that we know of, to come talk with us in a skiff about locations or specifically more information pertaining to this without, being in fear of basically being hit with espionage.
Mm-hmm. Yes, because, you heard David Grusch was naming specific positions that need to be subpoenaed and looked into. Mm-hmm. The long-term guys who may actually have responsibility for this program. But up next, I'm gonna hold you over if you can.
That's cool.
Because up next we have to talk about why. What are they worried about in disclosing any of this? There are some interesting answers there. We'll pick it up there when we come back. Don't go away. Every new year, people think about what a real fresh start looks like. For many, it begins at home. January is a great time to refresh your space and start the year feeling grounded. And Cozy Earth can be your go-to for that reset. They just launched their new Baja bedding set. It's their first fully matching collection. Sheets, duvet cover, quilt, all inspired by the soothing tones of Baja California. The designs are gorgeous, the fabrics feel premium, and it gives your bedroom that elevated resort-like look. And do not forget the Luxe bath towels. These towels are incredible, made from a cotton and bamboo viscose blend with zero twist technology, so they are plush, absorbent, and feel like a warm hug when you step out of the shower. Everything comes with a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty. Start the new year with real comfort. Go to CozyEarth.com, use my code Megyn for up to 20% off. CozyEarth.com, code Megyn. And if you get a post-purchase survey, tell them you heard about Cozy Earth right here. Representative Anna Paulina Luna had to run to a briefing, unfortunately, so we'll have to continue or conclude that discussion with her another time. But highly recommend the film, guys. Age of Disclosure. It's on Amazon Prime right now. And I would love to hear your feedback on your own takeaways. Of course, he's getting ripped by, the Hollywood Reporter, the New York Times, saying only a chump would believe what's in there. I don't see how you watch this thing and don't walk away believing, honestly. And I've been a skeptic. These people in this video seem entirely credible. And there's 34 of them. And they all have been at the head of these investigative committees for years. And like I said, respected physicists and fighter pilots. If these aren't UAPs, what are they that they keep finding? And these guys are saying not just that they, had mid-air encounters, but some of these people who do the investigations are saying we actually have craft and some sort of bodies or biologic material. I want to get back to this shooting that just happened in Minneapolis. Kristi Noem, I think she was on Fox News. She called in and said the following, quote, "A woman attacked them," the ICE agents who shot, I think, one shot. Oh, we have it. We have a cut. Let's watch. Let's listen.
You asked about a shooting that we just had in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It was an act of domestic terrorism. What happened, it was our ICE officers were out in an enforcement action. They got stuck in the snow because of the adverse weather that is in Minneapolis. They were attempting to push out their vehicle, and a woman attacked them and those surrounding them and attempted to run them over and ram them with her vehicle. An officer of ours acted quickly and defensively shot to protect himself and the people around him. And my understanding is that she was hit and is deceased.
Okay, let's just see the video one more time. I don't know what preceded this. We should say this for the record. Maybe there was a more dangerous confrontation before the tape that is circulating online that's not on tape. The tape that is making the rounds, I will say, doesn't perfectly match up with that description. However, I cannot say that the ICE agent on the front driver's side of the vehicle did not feel in any way endangered by the fact that he was right there by the driver's side window and she started to drive away. Now, you're not allowed to shoot somebody just for fleeing. We don't give the death penalty for fleeing an officer. However, if he genuinely felt that he was about to get run over, that would be a different story. What we seem to see in this film is that I'll say it, I'll describe it for the listening audience again before we play it, but she's parked in a maroon SUV. She's not moving. This gray pickup truck with ICE agents pulls up, or DHS employees pulls up. You see a guy in gray fatigues get out and go over to the driver's side window. There's another guy dressed in black who goes in front of him. And then the story quickly becomes about a guy who appears to have come from, I'm guessing, the other side of the maroon car, like the passenger side. He came up in his own ICE vehicle, I guess, from the passenger side, and he kind of folds in front of the guy dressed in black who's in front of the driver's side window. Because this guy you don't even see. If you're just watching this tape from the left, you see the guy in the gray, you see the guy in the black right in front of him, over to the driver's side window. But it appears the guy who did the shooting came from the front of her car, or the passenger side of her car, from his own vehicle, and he appears to be the one who did the shooting. And I don't know what she was thinking, but she has these ICE agents on the side of her car, and she decides to try to drive away. I mean, it seems to be a clear attempt to flee. Everybody knows when you're talking to law enforcement, you don't freaking drive away. Do not flee. But again, in general, the rule is you cannot shoot somebody for fleeing unless you consider them armed and dangerous. That's generally the rule with cops. Now, they're claiming that she tried to run them over. Is that what was in this guy's head when he tried to shoot? And can we say, watching this video, definitively that that's not true? No. But that's certainly going to be in question because it's not quite clear from the vantage point that we're seeing so far. And I'm sure there will be other videos that will provide more information, but let's just watch it one more time. Stopped maroon vehicle. Here comes the silver ICE truck, pickup truck, the guy in the gray fatigues. Kind of saunters over. A guy dressed in black comes in front of the guy in gray. She backs up. Yeah. So she pulled, just for listening audience, she kind of backed up. You had 3 ICE agents on the left, the passenger side of her car. Okay, we can stop it. 3 ICE agents on the driver's side of her car. And she reversed, which is relevant. She reversed, which is not good. That definitely could telegraph to a cop that you're trying to run him over. We're watching it again. Then she goes forward. Then they shoot. Here's where we're watching again, the guy in the gray. He approaches, the guy in black approaches, and from somewhere, there's a third guy who appears on the front left. She reverses and then she backs up. She backs up and then she goes forward. Here is Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. We have the SOT. Let's listen to him.
Better, but I do have a message for our community, for our city, and I have a message for ICE. To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis. We do not want you here. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. People are being hurt. Families are being ripped apart. Long-term Minneapolis residents that have contributed so greatly to our city, to our culture, to our economy are being terrorized, and now somebody is dead. That's on you. And it's also on you to leave.
Wow. Maybe if you would cooperate with the federal authorities, sir, in rounding up the illegals who have no right to be there, then ICE would leave. Why is ICE there? Why are they even there? They're not in Houston. That's not their first choice. They're there because you won't enforce the nation's laws. They're trying to enforce the immigration laws. You have an obligation to cooperate with them. If somebody gets arrested by working with ICE on the detainer, you won't, because you're a sanctuary city, thus endangering everyone around. You amped up the pressure and the environment around these officers who are just trying to do their job. They've been getting shot at in city after city. And let's not forget, in Charlotte, I believe it was Charlotte, almost run over by a woman driving a truck. They had to shoot at her too. That woman lived. But you don't know what's in the heads of these law enforcement officers. They're on a razor's edge right now because they're under threat. There's been bounties taken out on their heads. They're trying to enforce the law, unlike you, Mayor Fry. This woman should not have backed up. And then it's almost like she didn't think she could get away unless she backed up and gave herself more room to turn. She backed up and then she accelerated in front, sort of moving along the side of the agents. So we'll hear from those agents, I'm sure. But this is very dangerous. This is very dangerous. Here's the New York Times. Minneapolis was the site of some of the most destructive unrest in recent American history in 2020 after the police killing of George Floyd. Local officials have called for peace in the hours and days ahead. People are going to be upset about what happened, Chief O'Hara said, and people are going to want to exercise their First Amendment rights, but please do so safely and lawfully to ensure that we do not have any further tragedy in the city or destruction. My understanding is that there was this presser at which the police chief made those comments just now, and for what it's worth, they did identify the woman driving the truck as a middle-aged white woman. We believe the cop was white too, or the DHS employees. So this does not at this hour appear to involve any sort of racial element, which of course was behind those protests that blew up Minneapolis back in late May, June 2020 after George Floyd was killed. They won't exercise caution. The media is not going to do that. And we'll see what happens in the days and hours ahead in Minneapolis. But this thing is going to be with us for a while. Okay, and before we go, we just got another video of this incident, and it's a much more clear version of what happened and why this thing went south. I'm going to show it to you quickly at first, just like at regular speed. I think this is from the local ABC. It's got the ABC 5 watermark on it. And then we're going to slow it down and talk about it. But just to set the stage again, what we see from the one angle is the cop dressed in gray, the cop dressed in black come out of their car, approach her car, and they're basically standing by the driver's side window. But the person who we believe fired the shot appears seemingly out of nowhere from that vantage point, which is back behind the DHS pickup truck that has pulled up. So we believe it may have been the wife, we're told, of the woman who got shot. Maybe not her video, but the point is it's from the vantage point of behind the maroon SUV and on the driver's side. What you don't see is a vantage point from the front of her SUV or the passenger side. So we don't know what's happening there. And all we do know is that we believe the cop who opened fire came from there. So why did he? Well, it's not clear from that first video, but this video just in seems to shed more light on it. Here, let's watch it at regular speed. All right, so stand by. You can see a cop right there, and there goes her car. She gets shot, and then her car goes into a car nearby because she's no longer in control of it. Okay, we're going to slow it down, though. Let's slow it down because now we see where that third cop came from. He came from the front of her SUV. He was in the road as her SUV accelerated toward him. Stand by here. You can see it. There he is. He's right there. He's standing in the road, and her car comes for him. And it appears to be then that he opened fire. Okay, so look, right here, you can see a cop dressed in black. He's standing right there. Her car comes. He tries to get out of the way. And that's when we believe he opened fire. Let's watch it again. See the silver car that's parked? He's standing there in the road. Here comes her car. You can see him brace. He moves out of the way, and we believe opened fire. I'm sorry, but this is very supportive of the police's story. There still will be a debate on whether he should have shot, he should have opened fire, but this does support the statement that he felt he was about to get run over, and that's why he drew his firearm. This will change the story considerably for anybody who's honest and wants to do a fair assessment of what happened in Minneapolis rather than just distract from, let's say, your political problems, Tim Walz, who just issued a statement that reads, "I've seen the video. Don't believe this propaganda machine. The state will ensure there is a full, fair, and expeditious investigation to ensure accountability and justice." Okay, and he's saying, he's retweeting the Homeland Security statement when he says, "Don't believe this propaganda machine." I'm sorry, Governor Walz, but you need to look at this tape from all angles before you make a judgment. That'll do it for us today. We will have more on this for sure tomorrow. Thanks for listening.